All right, guys, welcome to another Eskrima podcast. I know I called it the Shave podcast, but it was just the experiment for the ferment. I used to do these in my car on the way to and from work, but I spend that time actually listening to different audiobooks or listening to the news now so that I can continue to feed my mind. So I'm doing these only once a week now. So you should expect to hear and see these podcasts either on the member platform or on YouTube every week now, unless something happens to me. It's going to be tough because the Manga Cicero Memorial is coming up. It's coming up in about a month, right? So today is September 1st, Labor Day. I was supposed to do this on August 31st, but I was spending time with my girlfriend and her son, so I was busy. Anyways, let's start with the vibe, right? So I'm definitely going to share this with you. I'm going to play it for myself. It's hilarious. Don't be ridiculous. Everybody just has to want this. It's hilarious. I'll put this in the final edit because it's pretty damn funny. And it's a good way to start the conversation, if you will. So definitely going to do that. But I used to do these podcasts on my in my car. And then I would just take the raw data and I would talk about what I did in training or what we did, what we've done over the week and stuff like that. And so I've been experimenting with different formats for teaching so that way you can do that. Big news for those of you who guys are in the instructor program and you're a part of the instructor membership and we're giving support to you, whether you're a group leader, a certified instructor, a guru, whatever. If you're in that program and you're at that level of membership, Cadre Guru Matt Demers has taken over the responsibility of kind of managing the scheduling for that and helping me stay on target for the virtual training. So he just announced on the member platform, we're going to do a instructor meeting next week on Saturday in the morning. So hopefully I'll see you guys there. It'll be a scheduled event on a regular basis from now on. Now that I was doing it working from home on Fridays, but I'm not necessarily allowed to do that anymore. So I have to put it to Saturdays. Of course, if you're in the instructor membership and you're part of that group, then what's going to happen is you will get the recording, or you'll get access to the recording. We'll probably save the actual video and then put it in the instructor membership. So you're going to need to have access to that. We might make it available to a few of the folks otherwise, but it's going to be in that instructor training. So yeah. So if you haven't seen one of these or heard one of these podcasts yet, because I've done 3, I've only published 1, but I like to shave with a straight razor because it slows me down. I do a lot. I did a post yesterday about what I did, and it was a little bit, but it was a super light day because I didn't work and I didn't really train. It was weird, this whole 3-day weekend, not working, not training. I even took time off my private lessons and stuff so that I could spend some more time resting, which was good because I recently hurt my ankle somehow. So I hurt it in jiu-jitsu. So I was getting to relax from that, and that was probably good. Sometimes we forget that rest is part of the training. That if you're training hard and you're training in a dedicated fashion, then rest has to be part of the calculation for that. One of the videos that's been occupying my mind lately is one by a very controversial content producer, and his name's Jason, and I really like his content, but it's really not for the faint of heart or anything like that. But he expresses this idea in one of his recent posts of, how ungrateful you are to procrastinate, that the universe has given you another day to wake up and you've put off whatever it is that you put off to another day. The thing is that I always post, or at least periodically post, this idea that the problem is you think you have more time, right? How ungrateful in this post, he's talking about wasting time, but he's also talking about wasted potential. Like, if you have all the benefits, you have the degree, or you have the background, or you have the support, and you do nothing with it. Like, how ungrateful are you? How ungrateful are you that you have a full, for those of us who have a fully functioning body and mind, and we don't do anything to sharpen our mind, we don't do anything to strengthen our bodies, we don't do anything to enrich our souls. How ungrateful you must be for the life that you've been given, right? Especially if you grew up here in the West, right? And I'll get to that later as to one of my sentiments for this particular podcast, but we live with a lot of fortune, right? And I'm going to get to this whole idea of wealth. I'm going to get to the idea of health and everything and how that relates to the rest of the world, because it has something to do with that. But this brings me on to a thought that I have as far as just a stray thought. One of the best things about me and my best friend, it's funny, actually, he did this recent, Meta came up with this whole AI conversation. And so, being the funny guy that he is, he goes, well, who's Jason and I's best friend? And it's like, not much is known about Jason's personal life and all these other things. And it's not even confirmed that he even has a best friend, or if he's in a relationship of any kind, because generally I'm pretty private person. I don't let anybody interfere with my personal life anymore. Like, I keep that pretty separate, simply because I've learned over time that that's just the best way to do things in terms of keeping things clean and clear, right? But so we had a laugh about that because, not much is known about Jason and whether or not he has a best friend. So it was pretty funny. But the best thing about he and I think that this is interesting. There's two things. One is what I didn't write down here, which was we spend our time talking about ideas and concepts and values most of the time. If we end up talking about a particular thing, an item, it's around a concept of being, a concept of some kind of virtue or something that thing or event or whatever helps us work through. We very rarely talk about people in an exclusive kind of gossipy way, and I really enjoy that. The thing that I did write down was one of the best things about him and I is that we can spend time with each other without talking to each other. We don't have to fill the silence with needless conversation. And I, for me, find that to be an enriching kind of friendship, simply because it's not about me expressing my feelings or going through a thing, or him, right? It's more about sharing that time, and I appreciate that as far as a kindred spirit is concerned. So I really did like that about him and about my friendships. And I have a relationship now where I don't necessarily feel that it's incumbent to entertain in any way, that we can kind of go about our day and seek solace in each other's company without having to be entertained or to entertain. That it's more about being together than it is about activities or things that we're accumulating or any of those things. So that's just a straight thought. But it brings me to my training, because, training often is done in silence. And it's a communion with yourself, especially if you're at a particular level. Some people feel the need to talk it through and everything like that, but as you're getting better, as you're becoming more proficient, it's more about your relationship with the art and how you're experiencing it, and less about how you can talk about it, although that is a necessary part of the process. Some things can't be learned through words, although that is a big part of the way that we train. My father, his way of teaching involved lecture. It's actually why I lecture in training, is because of that. But we also have salutes. And I just released the challenge salutes in the Orange Sash Gold Tip curriculum, I think it is, on the Steel membership platform. So you guys can all check that out if you're a Steel member. But the idea that one can commune with oneself or others, not through words, but through shared experience, is just amazing. I find it funny about people that just can't stop talking, which is kind of ironic, since I'm doing a podcast for my students and my friends and my colleagues, and it's just a whole bunch of talking. There's a little bit of irony there. It's kind of ridiculous. But the next thing that I want to bring a thought to is this idea of violence, and does training make you violent? I've been following Versus Fighter. They're a brand of equipment, and there's a woman there that talks about the psychology, the physiology of fighting, and adrenaline and brain development and whatnot. And there's this new post on there about whether or not training actually makes you more violent, and it's a really interesting post. I'll share it in the description of the video on the YouTube version. Obviously, if you're listening to this through a podcast, you won't be able to do that. You'll have to go to the Eskrima podcast and check it out there so that I get the link there. But like, it's pretty interesting. She goes over a lot of really interesting subjects. In this particular subject is how training the way that we do and fighting and whatnot, and learning how to be calm under pressure actually increases our emotional IQ, if you will, or EQ. That's the term that you're supposed to use, I guess. That it increases our ability to handle stress without violence or without anger, but with calm resolve, which is something that I experienced. Like, sparring with my father, it was pretty interesting because like he would be completely calm. You'd watch him fight. I actually remember watching him fight in Washington, and this guy is like swinging everywhere. And my dad decides that he's only going to go after the leg. Specifically, he did angle 10 for the Serrata folk, right? This is an angle 10, which is an upward strike forehand with the right hand to the left thigh. And he receives every blow from this guy who's testing to become an instructor, because if you're in a 9 and you're going to become an instructor, you have to fight. And it's full contact stick, and you get a helmet and you get gloves, and knees and groin and elbows are optional. Gloves are recommended. We use those reactor gloves most of the time, which are those repelling gloves, but later on we started using MMA gloves. So like, I have students who are doctors. I'm not going to make them break their hands and not be able to perform surgery because they need to stick fight. So injury is not a badge. Anyways, so watch him fight, and he's completely calm. And fighting against him, sparring against him, it's been so long. It's going to be 25 years he's been gone. But he didn't have an expression. Not really. He might purse his lips, and he might go, like he'd make a little grunty noise when he'd struck. But no loud ki, no bravado, no threat display, no hold me back, you bro, because that's ridiculous, right? People who do that, right? The whole threat display thing is a little bit, well, that's just for lesser men. Let's just put it that way. But so this whole video, the idea that it doesn't make you inhuman, it doesn't make you prone to violence, it actually makes you able to cope with stress better, training in martial arts, training in Eskrima, stick fighting, or MMA, or whatever it is, and actually makes you more emotionally capable to deal with difficult things, to deal with stress. And isn't that what we are looking for when we do martial arts? Aren't we looking for that greater acumen or ability? So I really like that video. It's been really spinning in my head as far as like the value of training, and kind of just remembering my own experiences in life, and how, like, as a bounty hunter, as a bouncer, when things got a little bit rough or threatened to be rough, like how the training was allowed me to remain calm. I wasn't always successful because, I'm just a human being, but it did help, for sure. It did help because I was calm. In fact, I had people say, "Why are you so calm?" When we're having some kind of altercation, and it was because of the training. But I caught this video. I caught this video of Eddie Murphy, which was first, like, what, Eddie Murphy in a YouTube video, and it's talking about, and this goes back to that whole procrastination and how arrogant and ungrateful you must be to procrastinate, which is something that everyone struggles through. I have occasionally struggled through, and I'm working through myself. I'm actually working through writing about some elements or things related to that in the book that I'm working on for just for training in Eskrima, my life experience. But in there, he says, you got 75 years. That's it. You get 75 winters. You get 75 summers, 75 springs. That's all the time that you get. On average, you don't get more. What are you going to do with it, kind of thing? Like, and what are we doing with it? What have we done with it? What have you done with it? Well, for me, I squandered a good portion of it being sad because my dad died, which was a little bit ridiculous, but maybe understandable for some. I know that some people didn't understand it, but what are we doing with that time? Is it being used well? And I said this recently in a post on the main social media accounts. Like, at this moment, your ancestors' sole reason for living is for you to be here right now. And are you being grateful with that time and that sacrifice and those trials and tribulations and the things? I mean, like, literally one of your ancestors, if not some, are running from bears and saber-toothed tigers and whatever else, let alone other tribes of humanoids, right? So what are you doing with your life? How are you seizing the day, right? Because, like, if you're just like, I'll just watch one more, YouTube video, or I'll just watch one more whatever it is, or I'm gonna binge watch Friends one more time, like, is that what they crawled out of the caves for? That's that freedom that we've all, tried to work for. I just find that a little bit ridiculous. So it definitely put a little bit of perspective and scope on my mind there. And then the last video I want to share with you was actually from a Slavic sounding guy talking about, he's talking about how Americans are great, and they're great because they've had to deal with the worst battles and stuff, and you can take it any way you like. But I came away with a couple things from there, which was, one was, the system fears the awakening of the people. And the thing about martial arts is that it's a journey of self-awakening, right? So, like, how interesting is that it's not really that popular of an endeavor to do unless you're a kid and you're trying to get your black belt, so you should put it on your CV to get admitted into college or something like that. A lot of people don't really take it seriously. And that purpose is the thing that can awaken a people, a person, right? For me, that purpose has always been the art, martial arts. It's always been the purpose. But in general, most people are kind of asleep. You get up, you work, you go and you do your thing, and maybe you get to hang out with your friends, or you watch some pseudo-violence game or whatever, so that way you can kind of feel like you're doing something. Maybe it's fantasy football. Please, I hope it's not fantasy football. I mean, I don't mean to judge, but I am so judging right now, right? So, what will wake you up? This one thought woke me up, and it's because I had a conversation about this movie with my girlfriend. And of course, we didn't know each other at the time, and it made me think. And here's the thing, because, like, there's all different ways of thinking about this. We're all asleep as a people. Some individuals may be awake to a lesser or greater degree, or maybe they're a lot awake. Who knows, right? So, we're all kind of asleep. But what might wake you up is this: who were you with when you saw? Who did you leave, or who left you when you saw A Star Is Born? That was an interesting movie. I really liked that movie. Very popular. I remember doing karaoke with someone that I thought was very special at the time. After the movie had been released a little while, but I had, seen the movie, and it was pretty touching and stuff like that. But it could be any movie that we're talking about. But, like, give yourself some scope as to, like, where, because, like, it was pretty interesting experience as far as a movie. It was very sensational. It dealt with some very tough subjects. I think it was a decent showing of Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. But the thought of, well, where was I and who was I with? Because, I've talked to people and they were alone. I've talked to people and they were just getting together with someone, when things were fresh. I've talked to people that were just broken up with when that movie came out. It's kind of like, talking to somebody, hey, what is your plans for Valentine's Day? And that's made up holiday, and some people get all grim and stuff and whatever. It's scope that I'm talking about, not necessarily the movie, and kind of like people's perspective. There's that everyday spy guy that used to be a spy for the CIA, and he says, the CIA knows this. And people lose by the lack of understanding of this. That most people live through their own perceptions. And that the one thing that they make sure that their field agents and their analysts know is the difference between individual perception and perspective. Now, I will go back to my dad's thing because I have people in my life like, oh yeah, I know that. And then they clearly are leading, a lesser life, right? To be kind, right? Because you got to know it and you got to use it and you got to use it to great effect. If you're not doing that, then you, at least from the point of view of a screamer or warrior, you're not, right? So where were you when that or some other life event, to give yourself some scope and some time? It was really interesting because scope and perspective is what people lack, right? It's something in love, in war, in triumph, in defeat. There's a time frame, a life experience frame that we need to understand to have scope and to have perspective. And it's important to constantly renew that perspective and scope. I mean, something that Patrick always says to me, which I very much appreciate his intellect and some of the things that he says because they're very edifying. He goes, and he's often said over the years now that I've known him, that boy is like a son to me. But if you have $5 in your pocket, let's just say it's 20 because it's easier for people to kind of wrap their heads around. You're automatically in the top 1% of the world in terms of wealth, because most of the world is in poverty, right? Bill Gates' whole thing about getting clean water to everybody, and Mr. Beast is trying to do that now, and the things that they do is all about poverty because most people live with very little and for very little and can get very little, and yet how ungratefully are you to bemoan your experience? That put scope for me, like when I'm down or when I'm having a hard time or when I'm experiencing a challenge and I can't find an answer or I'm not getting the support I need. I go back to, well, it could be much worse. At least I have clean water to shave with, and I have the choice to shave, and I have the choice to shave with a straight razor. Those are things to think about. Not everybody gets that choice either, right? So scope is really one of the most important things for us to understand as human beings, as martial artists, because just in martial arts, well, my art is better than your art. Well, I mean, yeah, I used to believe that myself, but I lacked scope. I lacked maturity. No art is better than the other. There are practitioners that produce better art in particular times. There's a rare individual that might be able to produce perfection most of the time, mostly because they understand that perfection is not something you own, it's something you rent, right? So having scope allows you to pay rent as part of that whole idea. People, they lack scope. They say, oh, the world is so much violent, like America has so much gun violence. Oh my God, America is the worst in gun violence. Yeah, I'm listening. And then I remember the fact that there are still children soldiers. There's still child soldiers in the world. Children that are 8 years of age, and they're given an AK-47, and by the time they're 12, they're made to procreate so that they can make more soldiers for the army or the warlord or whoever it is that they are conscripted, I guess you could say. They're indentured servants essentially for war at the age of 8. And somebody wants to tell me that life is, the world is too dangerous and the West is too violent and all that stuff. I go, I'm not saying that it's better or it's good that there is violence or that it's okay that there is violence, because there isn't. There's no excuse for that. But you lack scope in your assertion when you say something like that. And I look at you and I have a hard time taking you seriously when you say stuff like that. The story of Rockefeller when it comes to wealth, and people are like, well, the white man is just keeping me down, or whatever crap somebody wants to say. I have a hard time with it. When you read the story of Rockefeller, when you read the story of Vanderbilt, when you read the story of some of these people, now Gates was a little bit affluent. He had influential parents, but not everybody has that. Some people came from nothing. Jensen Huang, who is the CEO, only owns 4% of his company, of NVIDIA, the only $4 trillion market cap company in the world today, the most successful high-tech company in the world today, started basically as an orphan, pawned off to poor relatives because of some tragedy, as opposed to his cousin, who lived a life of affluence and fortune who's also now the CEO of AMD, their main competitor. Kind of funny how all that works together. But the idea that someone would say, well, you just had all the opportunities, I don't really agree with that, simply because that's not necessarily true. There are plenty of stories of rags to riches, and that we need to keep scope, because we only have 75 years. We only have 75 summers, 75 winters. And it's crazy to think that people think the way that they do and they limit themselves. How ungrateful are you really to know that some people can succeed where you say that you can't? Because why? It's pathetic. And it's certainly not for me as far as Eskrima is concerned. I looked at that and said, I don't want to be good enough to defend myself. To be a credit to my teachers and my teachers' teachers, I try to be the absolute best I can. And I'll tell you, I haven't always succeeded physically or even morally. You know, I caught myself a couple times, especially when I was in high school. You know, it was easy to hang out with friends and be liked if I could do the cool things. I'm not stupid. Almost none of those people are in my life anymore. And even the ones that were in my life up until recently, I cut out of my life because to what end? They just wanted to spend time doing frivolous things. And that's really just not my path. So goodbye. Have a great life. I have things to do. And that was my response to that. Because I just think that, you know, like my grandfather, he, on my father's side, came to the Philippines at 14 as a migrant farm worker. And I don't think that he came here to get better opportunity for himself, for sure. But, you know, also provided opportunity, whether on purpose or by happenstance, for people like me, his grandson. I don't think that should be spent watching episodes of Friends or whatever other thing, or watching grown men play with children's playthings. It's just not what I think I should be spending my time in. I think I should be doing, and that will show the gratitude that is worthy of my grandfather and my father, right? You know, and it goes down to, like, if you get that scope, where does that put you in your last bad day? My last bad day, I was pretty upset about some stuff. It was only a few weeks ago, just because things weren't working out the way I wanted to, or as fast as I wanted to. And then I gained a little bit of scope. I remember where I was, who I wasn't with, or who I was with when I needed love or I needed friendship. I remember nobody being able to help me during COVID or willing to help me. I have scope, and that scope helps me guide me. There's no excuses. There's just no excuses, right, to what you do. And that's what drives me to be better at Eskrima, be better as a teacher, right, is to get there, to be a credit to my father and his teachers, because I am his reputation. Those of you who train with me are my father's reputation. If you've been training with me for 10 years, you're my father's reputation. If you had trained with my father for 10 plus years, whatever you've done reflects upon him. And I gotta say that I could have been a better man sometime. So that scope has been very useful in being self-reflective and self-critical, because you need to be. You know, the thing is that as a martial artist, we all gain certain capabilities that not everybody has, experiences that not everybody has. And that comes with a price, and that price is responsibility. So that scope is very useful, and that's what I've been thinking about for the most part, is gaining greater scope about things in general in my life. The second rule in what we teach as the United System of Eskrima now, my dad used to say was, if you get hit, it's your fault. Now, I don't express it that way anymore. I express it as be responsible. Because the gratitude for the opportunity to fix and change things comes from changing things and showing that you can and will, instead of complaining or taking a reason. In lock and block, if someone hits you, the feeder hits you, it's not for you to blame the feeder for hitting you, because that's what they're supposed to do, right? Or, I did this, or my hand got stuck here. No one cares. The snake doesn't care. Your opponent's not going to care in a real fight. They don't care. In fact, they're happy for you to have an excuse to lose, right? But getting better requires an excuse to being better, a reason to be better. And be responsible, which is the second rule, is an empowering rule to say that, I didn't do it, it wasn't successful, and I can do better. I think that's an important element to being a good, accomplished martial artist, to being a good and accomplished human being, is to just say, all the successes that I experience are because the people before me, because they're only alive because they wanted to provide me with that opportunity. I'm the sole reason why they lived, because otherwise there's no meaning to their life other than survival, right? And if I give myself the responsibility, then I can be a credit. I empower myself to be a credit to my teachers, to my family, my father, my mother, my cousins, my uncle. It's like that Viking oath, back to the beginning, like in the 13th Warrior. But anyways, fill your day with tasks that move the needle as you reach for your purpose. That's what I try to do every day. That's what I recommend you to do. I'm not always happy, but I can look myself in the eye like I am right now and know that I did right by myself and by my standards as a martial artist and as a human being. Stay sharp, stay dangerous.